We're in Collingtree now, a tiny little village, even smaller than Milton Mouser. Most unusual because the high street is completely cut off at both ends. Down here used to be the road to Blisworth, but in 1959 they built the M1 and that completely cut off the end of it. And that way, where the pub and the church are, used to be the road through to Northampton, but in the late 1800s the Grange was built, which is now the site of the Collingtree golf course, and that completely cut it off, so the high street goes nowhere. Collingtree, beautiful old tiny little village, must have been absolutely devastated by the M1. The noise is just constant, and there's so many houses just along the side of it. And just at the side of the motorway is this beautiful house called the Grange. Obviously very old, not the same one that was built in the village where the golf course is. Confusing, two houses called the Grange. We're on the high street now, and this pub, which has been here for hundreds of years, the wooden walls of Old England. Most unusual name. Apparently in 1642 a troop of Cromwell's soldiers were billeted here, and they drank the pub dry and left without paying. Across the road is the village room, which I suppose is a bit like a village hall cum library, and that was built with the money that Pickering Phipps, who had the manor house built, the Grange, he left in his will. He was quite a philanthropist and left, well, he had lots of improvements done, building improvements to the church, and he had the school built. He gave lots of money to the village, really. More about him in a moment. That house there is called Toll Cottage, so when this was the main road to Northampton, you had to stop with your stagecoach or your horse and cart, whatever, and pay up the fee. And here's the church. 1172 this was built, and it's dedicated to St Columba. What a lovely old church, been here for hundreds of years. And there we have the old rectory. And I mentioned before about Pickering Phipps. In 1875 he had a big house. He was the brewery, from the brewery family in Northampton, and he had a big house built just at the end of that lane there called the Grange. Sadly, it was demolished in the 1960s. All that's left now are the entrance lodges on the A45, and it's now a golf club. There's 10 listed buildings alone on the high street here. Such an interesting little village. Pickering Phipps was, as we've said, a huge benefactor for the village, and he was actually the MP for Northampton twice and the mayor. Lodge Avenue at the end of the village was the road that led through to the Grange. You can actually see some of the trees he planted. Lots of big tall trees, sequoia trees actually. They're still left. That's the school that was built in 1876 with money from Sir Pickering Phipps. he was so well liked that when he died in 1890, this little village had to have 10 constables from Northampton to control the crowds, because the high street was just thronged with people wanting to pay their respects. The house was then bought by the Sears family, Northampton shoemakers, and apparently they carried on the generosity towards the village for many years, then sadly demolished in the 1960s.